June 15th, 1961, 7:42 a.m. Mayme Johnson poured coffee in her kitchen on 122nd Street, listening to her daughter Ruthie hum upstairs while getting ready for school. It was an ordinary Thursday morning, the kind where you don't know your life is about to shatter into 1,000 pieces. By 8:03 a.m., that coffee would be cold on the counter. By noon, 3 men would be marked for death. By 4 p.m., every criminal organization in New York would learn a lesson written in blood. You can steal from Bumpy Johnson. You can disrespect him. You can even try to kill him, but you never, ever touch his family. This is the story of those 4 hours. The 4 hours that transformed Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson from Harlem's most feared kingpin into something else entirely. A father willing to watch the world burn. Mayme climbed into the stairs to Ruthie's bedroom. Her daughter should have left for school 3 minutes ago. Ruthie was never late. The door was open, the room was empty. The window that faced the alley, stood wide open, curtains dancing in the morning breeze. Mayme's breath caught. On Ruthie's neatly made bed sat a single white envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. We have what you love most. 500,000 in unmarked bills, midnight. Further instructions to follow. Call the police and she dies screaming. Tell anyone and we mail you pieces. You have 16 hours, Johnson. Don't waste them. The scream that tore from Mayme's throat brought Bumpy charging up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. He burst through the doorway, eyes scanning for threats, hand already reaching for the .38 he kept at the small of his back. Then he saw his wife's face, saw the note in her hands, saw his daughter's empty room. Something happened to Bumpy Johnson in that moment. The careful mask he always wore, the smooth-talking policy king, the chess player who thought 5 moves ahead, cracked down the middle. What emerged from underneath was primal, ancient, terrifying, pure, focused, rage. He took the note from Mayme's shaking hands. Read it once, twice. His jaw clenched so tight Mayme heard his teeth grind. Ellsworth, she whispered. He looked at his watch. 8:05 a.m. I'm bringing her home, he said, his voice deadly quiet. I don't care who took her. I don't care what it is. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they'd never been born. Small's Paradise on 7th Avenue and 135th Street. Normally at this hour, the club would be dark, empty, sleeping off last night's jazz and whiskey. But when Bumpy Johnson made a call, people moved. By 8:25 a.m., 42 men sat in the main room. Numbers runners, muscle, policy bankers, street bosses, connected cops, informants. Every piece of Bumpy's organization that made Harlem run. They'd come from breakfast tables, from beds, from early morning collections. Nobody asked why. When Bumpy called, you came. He stood before them now, the ransom note in his hand, his face carved from stone. Gentlemen, he said softly, someone made a mistake this morning. A fatal mistake. The room was silent. You could hear breathing. They took my daughter. He held up the note. Ruth Johnson, 16 years old, kidnapped from our home between 7:30 and 8 o'clock this morning. These people want $500,000. They think they can threaten my family and walk away breathing. He looked around the room slowly, meeting each man's eyes. They're wrong. A hand went up. Jimmy Knuckles Patterson, one of Bumpy's oldest enforcers. Boss, you thinking this is the Italians? Genovese making a move? I don't know yet, Bumpy said. Could be Genovese. Could be the Colombos testing me. Could be some crew from Brooklyn that thinks they're smarter than they are. Right now, I don't care who they are. I care where they are. He began pacing, thinking out loud. They came through the fire escape. That means they watched the house, learned our routine, knew exactly when Ruthie would be alone in her room. This wasn't random. This was planned. Probably for weeks. Junie Bird, Bumpy's right hand, stood up. What do you need, boss? Everything. Bumpy turned to face him. Junie, you call every informant we have, every cop on our payroll, every bartender, every cabbie, every street kid who sees things. I want to know who's been asking questions about my family, who's been watching my house, who's been flashing money around like they're expecting a big payday. He pointed to another man. Marcus, you hit the train stations, bus terminals, airports. They might try to move her out of the city. I want eyes everywhere. Willie, you damn, he continued. You take 5 men and shake down every fence, every dealer, every number spot in Harlem. Somebody knows something. People don't plan a kidnapping without talking about it. He looked at the rest of them. The rest of you spread out. Every neighborhood, every borough. Someone saw something this morning. A van. Suspicious men. Something unusual between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Find it. What if we get resistance? Someone asked. Bumpy's eyes went cold. Then you remove the resistance. Today there are no rules, there are no boundaries. There's only my daughter and the people standing between me and her. He checked his watch again. 8:34 a.m. You have 15 and a half hours until their deadline. But I'm not waiting 15 hours. Kidnappers who ask for money rarely keep their victims alive that long. Too risky, and too many things can go wrong. I'm giving myself 4 hours. 4 hours to find her, get her back, and kill everyone involved. The men stood. No one spoke. No one needed to. As they filed out, Junie stayed behind. Boss, he said quietly, what if we can't find her in 4 hours? Bumpy looked at him. Then I burn this city to the ground until I do. The calls started coming in fast. 9:17 a.m. Father Divine, the Harlem preacher, with ears in every confessional, every speakeasy, every place where people whispered secrets. Bumpy, Father Divine's voice crackled over the phone. I heard something that might help. Talk to me, Father. Last week, 2 men were asking questions about your daughter, which school she attended, what time she left the house in the morning, what route she walked. Bumpy's grip tightened on the receiver. Who were they? White men, Italian accents. One of them had a distinctive scar running down his left cheek, like someone had opened him up from eye to jawbone. They were drinking at McClory's bar in Little Italy. Bumpy wrote it down. Thank you, Father. Bumpy, Father Divine said, I know you're angry. I know what you're capable of, but remember. With respect, Father, Bumpy interrupted. Today, God and I are on different schedules. I'll answer for it later. He hung up, looked at Junie. McClory's bar. Get Willie over there, now. If you're feeling the intensity of what's unfolding, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more true stories about power, loyalty, and what happens when you push the wrong man too far. Because what happens next? It gets darker. Willie Jefferson walked into McClory's bar at 9:51 a.m. The place smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. Behind the counter, a nervous Italian man in his 50s looked up from polishing glasses. We're closed, he said. Willie pulled out a photograph of Ruthie, a school picture, her smiling, innocent, alive. He laid it on the bar. This girl, Willie said quietly. 2 men were in here last week asking about her. I want their names. The bartender's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. In one smooth motion, Willie grabbed the man by his collar and slammed him against the shelves behind the bar. Bottles crashed to the floor. Let me make this simple, Willie said, his voice calm as a summer lake. Bumpy Johnson's daughter was kidnapped this morning. Those 2 men, the Italian with the scar, they're involved. You've got 10 seconds to give me names or I'm going to burn this bar to the ground with you locked inside. 10, 9, 8. Okay. The bartender was shaking. Tommy Marciano. They call him Tommy the Hawk. He was here with another guy, Sal something. Where do I find Tommy? Red Hook. He's got a warehouse operation near the docks, 43 Pier Street. That's all I know, I swear. Willie let him go. The man collapsed against the bar, breathing hard. If you're lying, Willie said, heading for the door, I'm coming back. And next time, I won't be asking questions. I'm not lying. I swear on my mother. Willie was already gone. Bumpy sat in the back office of Small's Paradise, staring at the name Willie had called in. Tommy the Hawk Marciano. Something didn't sit right. Tommy was muscle, low-level enforcer for the Genovese family. He had the brains of a brick and the ambition of a house cat. There was no way Tommy Marciano planned a sophisticated kidnapping operation on his own. Someone bigger was pulling strings. Bumpy picked up the phone, dialed a number he knew by heart. Detective Murphy answered on the second ring. Murphy was dirty, had been on Bumpy's payroll for 6 years. But he was useful. Murphy, I need information. Bumpy, I heard about your daughter, I'm sorry. Save it. Tell me about Vito Genovese. What's he been planning? Silence on the other end. Then, there's been talk. What kind of talk? Genovese wants Harlem, wants control of the numbers racket. He's been looking for leverage, something to force you to negotiate or step aside. Bumpy closed his eyes. There it was, the bigger picture. My daughter, he said flatly. I don't have proof, Murphy said carefully, but the timing fits. And Tommy the Hawk? He works directly for Genovese's crew. Where's Genovese right now? His social club on Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. He's there every morning. Bumpy hung up without another word. Now it made sense. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was a power play. Genovese takes Ruthie, forces Bumpy to hand over his territory to get her back, then probably kills her anyway to send a message. Nobody is untouchable. It was smart, ruthless, calculated. It was exactly what Vito Genovese would do. But Genovese had made one critical miscalculation. He didn't understand what Bumpy Johnson was willing to become to save his daughter. Bumpy Johnson walked into Vito Genovese's social club with 5 armed men at 11:03 a.m. No appointment, no warning. Just walked through the front door like he owned the place. The guards reached for their weapons. Bumpy's men already had guns to their heads. Sit down, Junie said pleasantly. Put your hands where we can see them. Nobody needs to die before lunch. In the back room, Vito Genovese was playing at cards with 3 of his captains. He looked up when Bumpy walked in, and for just a moment, a flicker, genuine surprise crossed his face. Bumpy, Genovese said, setting down his cards slowly. This is, unexpected. Where's my daughter? Genovese spread his hands. I don't know what you're talking about. Bumpy pulled out his straight razor, the same one he'd carried for 30 years. He opened it slowly, the blade catching the light. Vito, Bumpy said, his voice soft as silk, I'm going to ask you one more time. Where is my daughter? The 3 captains reached for their guns. Bumpy's men already had theirs out. Mexican standoff. Bumpy, Genovese said carefully, if someone took your daughter, I had nothing to do with it. You're lying. Maybe, maybe not. Genovese leaned back in his chair. But if you kill me right now, you'll never find her, and my people will kill your wife, your friends, everyone you love. Is that what you want? The room held its breath. Bumpy stared at Genovese for 10 long seconds. Then he closed the razor. Put it away. You have until noon, Bumpy said. If I don't have my daughter by noon, I'm coming back here, and I'm not leaving until you're dead, every single person in this building. Understood? Genovese's face remained neutral. Understood. Bumpy walked out. When he was gone, one of Genovese's captains spoke up. Boss, you want us to handle this? Genovese shook his head. No, let Tommy finish the job. If Bumpy's daughter dies, he'll be too broken to fight. We'll take Harlem without firing a shot. And if he comes back after noon? Genovese smiled coldly. Then we'll be ready. Get everyone. If Bumpy Johnson wants war, we'll give him war. Red Hook, Brooklyn, 11:34 a.m. The warehouse district was abandoned at this hour. Pier Street was deserted except for seagulls and the smell of rotting fish from the docks. Warehouse 43 was a 3-story brick building with barred windows and a single entrance. Bumpy's men surrounded it like a net closing. Willie climbed to the roof. Junie covered the back exit. Bumpy and 6 others went through the front door. Inside, darkness. Crates stacked to the ceiling. Dust hanging in shafts of light. The sound of water dripping somewhere. And voices. Male voices coming from upstairs. Come on, Tommy. Just kill her already. We got the note delivered. Job's done. Genovese said, wait for the money. Screw the money. This girl's trouble. Her old man's probably tearing the city apart looking for her right now. That's the point, you idiot. When he pays, we kill her anyway. Sends a message. Bumpy's jaw clenched. He moved silently up the stairs, his men's shadows behind him. At the top was a door, light bleeding from underneath. He pressed his ear against it and heard his daughter's voice. "Please," Ruthie was saying, her voice small and terrified. "Please just let me go. I won't tell anyone. I promise." "Shut up. One more word and I cut out your tongue." Bumpy's hand gripped the doorknob. He looked at his men. Their faces were stone. He held up 3 fingers. 3, 2, 1. Bumpy kicked the door open. The room exploded. Tommy the Hawk was standing over Ruthie, a knife glinting in his hand. She was tied to a chair, mouth gagged, tears streaming down her face. 2 other men were at a table counting money. Money that was supposed to be ransom but looked more like payment for a job. They all went for their guns. Bumpy's men fired first. The 2 men at the table went down before they could even stand. One slumped forward into the money. The other hit the floor hard. Tommy grabbed Ruthie, yanked her chair backward, pressed the knife against her throat. "One more step," he screamed. "One more step, and I cut her throat right here." Everyone froze. The room went silent except for Ruthie's muffled sobs behind the gag. "Tommy," Bumpy said, his voice eerily calm, "you let her go right now and I'll make it quick. A bullet to the head. You won't feel a thing. You keep that knife on her and I'll make it last days." Tommy laughed, a high, hysterical sound. "You think I'm scared of you? You're outnumbered, old man. My guys outside are already dead," Junie said from behind Tommy. He'd come up the back stairs. Gun pointed at Tommy's head. "You're the one who's surrounded." Tommy's eyes darted between Bumpy and Junie. He was trapped. Knew it. But desperation makes people stupid. "I'll kill her," he said. "I swear to God, I'll kill her." "Then you'll die 1 second later," Bumpy said. "And it won't be a bullet, Tommy. It'll be my hands. I'll strangle you so slowly you'll beg for death long before it comes. Your choice. Die quick or die slow." Tommy's hands shook. The knife pressed harder against Ruthie's throat. A thin line of blood appeared. Bumpy's face went dead. "That," he said softly, "was a mistake." In one fluid motion, faster than a man his age should move, Bumpy pulled a gun from his waistband and shot Tommy in the right shoulder. The same shoulder holding the knife. Tommy screamed. The knife clattered to the floor. Junie grabbed Ruthie, pulled her away from Tommy, who collapsed against the wall, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Bumpy walked forward, picked up the knife, stood over Tommy. "You cut my daughter," Bumpy said. "I'm sorry." Tommy was crying now, blood seeping between his fingers. "I'm sorry. Genovese made me. I didn't want to." Bumpy knelt down, looked Tommy in the eyes. "I know," he said, "but you did it anyway." What happened in the next 4 minutes, Bumpy's men never spoke about. Not to each other, not to their wives, not to anyone. But when they walked out of that warehouse at 11:51 a.m., Tommy the Hawk was dead. The other 2 kidnappers were dead. And Bumpy Johnson was carrying his daughter in his arms. Ruthie sobbed into her father's chest as Junie drove them back to Harlem. She was traumatized, but alive. Whole. Safe. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "Baby girl," Bumpy said, holding her tight. "You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. This wasn't your fault. You understand me? This was never your fault." "I was so scared." "I know, but you're safe now. Nobody's ever going to hurt you again. I promise." When they pulled up to the house on 132nd Street, Mayme ran out. She saw Ruthie alive, broke down completely, grabbed her daughter, held her like she'd never let go. Bumpy watched them, his wife and daughter, the 2 people he loved more than anything in this world. He'd gotten Ruthie back, kept his promise. But he wasn't done, not even close. Bumpy called Frank Costello, the most powerful Italian mob boss in New York, the man even the 5 families respected. "Frank, I need to talk to Genovese." "Bumpy," Frank said carefully, "that's not a good idea right now. I just pulled my daughter out of a warehouse where Genovese's men were holding her hostage. One of them cut her throat. So I'm going to talk to Genovese. The only question is whether it's a conversation or an execution." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where do you want to meet?" "Neutral ground, your restaurant. 1 hour." Frank Costello's restaurant in Manhattan was empty except for Frank sitting at a corner table. 2 bodyguards stood by the door. Bumpy walked in alone. The bodyguards moved to frisk him. Frank waved them off. Bumpy sat down. Frank poured 2 glasses of whiskey, slid one across. "I'm glad you got your daughter, Bennett," Frank said. "Thank you for arranging this meeting." "I didn't have a choice. If I hadn't, you'd have started a war." "Still might," Bumpy said. Frank studied him. "Talk to me. What do you want?" "Justice?" "Be specific." Bumpy leaned forward. "Genovese tried to use my daughter to take my territory. That can never happen again. If it does, I'll kill him. I'll kill everyone in his organization. I'll burn his empire to the ground, and I'll do it in front of the whole city so everyone knows. You don't touch my family, ever." Frank nodded slowly. "You mean that?" "Every word. Vito's a boss of one of the 5 families. You can't just kill him without consequences." "Then what do you suggest?" Frank thought for a moment. "A sit-down. You, me, Genovese, and the other bosses. We make it official. What Genovese did violated the rules. Families are off limits. Everyone agrees on that. We make him apologize publicly in front of the commission, and we make him pay restitution." "How much?" "500,000. The exact amount he demanded." Bumpy considered it. "That's the money. What about the blood?" 3 men are already dead. That should be enough." Bumpy shook his head. "It's not." "What else do you want?" "I want Genovese's word, in front of everyone, that he'll never touch my family again, that Harlem stays independent, that this ends here. And I want him to look me in the eye when he says it." Frank nodded. "I can arrange that. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the Ravenite Social Club. All 5 families will be there. If Genovese refuses, then you'll have my blessing to do what you need to do." Bumpy extended his hand. "Thank you, Frank." Frank shook it. "Your daughter's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her," Bumpy said. "That's why I'll kill anyone who threatens her. Remember that. The Ravenite Social Club in Little Italy." Where the commission met. The 5 families of New York, the most powerful criminal organization in America. Bumpy Johnson walked in alone. At the table sat 5 men: Frank Costello, Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, Joe Bonanno, and Vito Genovese. Genovese looked at Bumpy with pure hatred. Bumpy stared back, face carved from stone. "Sit down, Mr. Johnson," Frank said. The meeting lasted 43 minutes. By the end, Genovese apologized publicly for violating the code. He agreed to pay $500,000 in restitution. He gave his word that Bumpy's family was untouchable. Harlem remained independent territory. When it was over, Bumpy stood to leave. Then he paused. "One more thing," he said, looking directly at Genovese. "Your men, Tommy the Hawk and the others. I know they were following your orders, but they still hurt my daughter. So they're dead. And if you send anyone else to Harlem looking for revenge, they'll end up the same way." "You can't keep killing my men," Genovese said. Bumpy smiled, cold as winter. "Watch me." He walked out of the Ravenite Social Club. Behind him, 5 mob bosses sat in silence. Finally, Carlo Gambino spoke. "Vito, you're an idiot. That man would have killed all of us to save his daughter. If this story is hitting you in the chest, don't just watch. Subscribe right now. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to understand what real loyalty looks like. Because the ending, it'll change how you see everything." June 17, 1961, 9:00 p.m. A courier arrived at Bumpy's house with a briefcase. Inside, $500,000 in cash. Bumpy counted it. Then he called his wife into the room. "What are you going to do with it?" Mayme asked. Bumpy looked upstairs where Ruthie was still recovering, still healing from the trauma. "Something good," and he said. "Something that turns this nightmare into hope." Within 2 weeks, the Ruth Johnson Scholarship Fund was established. It sent 23 kids from Harlem to college that first year. Over the next decade, it would send hundreds more. Every scholarship recipient received a letter with their acceptance. This scholarship is funded by people who believe every child deserves a chance. Work hard, make your family proud, and remember, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. The letter was unsigned, but everyone in Harlem knew who wrote it. Grace Washington stood at a podium at Columbia University, accepting her doctorate in medicine. She was the first person in her family to go to college, the first to become a doctor. During her speech, she said something that made the entire audience stand and applaud. "I wouldn't be here today without the Ruth Johnson Scholarship. I was a poor kid from Harlem with no hope, no future. But someone believed in me. Someone I never met gave me a chance. And I want every young person here to know. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expect. Sometimes they're people the world calls criminals, but I call them heroes." In the audience, Ruth Johnson, now 30 years old with children of her own, wiped away tears. After the ceremony, Grace found her. "You're Ruth Johnson," Grace said. "The scholarship is named after you." Ruth nodded. "My father started it after something bad happened to me when I was 16. He wanted something good to come from it." "Your father saved my life," Grace said. "He saved hundreds of lives," Ruth smiled through her tears. "He would have been proud to hear you say that. He passed away 7 years ago, but he always said the same thing. Protect your people. Give them a chance. That's real power." Grace hugged her. He was right. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968, 7 years after that terrible day in June. At his funeral, over 5,000 people attended. Politicians, musicians, community leaders, and hundreds of young people, doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, who'd received scholarships from the fund he started. None of them knew the full story. None of them knew about June 15th, 1961. About 4 hours when Bumpy tore through New York City like a hurricane to save his daughter. But Ruth knew, and she told her children, and they told their children. The story became legend, not because Bumpy killed 3 kidnappers, though he did. Not because he faced down the Italian mob, though he did that too, but because of what he did afterward. He could have kept the money, could have used it for himself, for his empire, for revenge. Instead, he turned his daughter's trauma into opportunity for hundreds of children who'd never met her. That's power. Real power. The truth about those 4 hours, June 15th, 1961. 4 hours, from 8 into Mayme, when Mayme found the note, to noon, when Ruthie was safe at home. 4 hours when Bumpy Johnson proved that nothing, not the mob, not $500,000, not the threat of war, nothing was more important than family. 4 hours that became a rule whispered in every criminal organization in New York. Never touch a Johnson. Not because Bumpy was the most ruthless, not because he had the most money or the most guns, but because everyone understood this was a man who would burn the entire world down to save the people he loved. And when a man like that gives you a warning, you listen. The strongest man in the room isn't the one with the most power. It's the one who knows exactly what he'll sacrifice to protect his family. Bumpy Johnson proved that on June 15th, 1961. 4 hours that changed everything. 4 hours that built a legacy. 4 hours that saved a daughter and transformed hundreds of lives. What would you do with 4 hours? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And remember, real power isn't about what you can take, it's about what you're willing to give. That's the lesson of Bumpy Johnson. That's the legend of June 15th, 1961. Now you know the truth.